The following is a presentation of the Six Arrows Radio Network.
Thanksgiving can mean only one thing. Yep, it's time for another shopping show here on Ham Radio 360 Podcast. Stay tuned.
MTCRadio.com presents Ham Radio 360, the podcast, with your host, Cale Nelson, K4CDN.
I'm looking around the shack for some jingle bells or something. All I've got's a cowbell, and I won't subject you to that. Hey, I'm Cale. I'm K4CDN. I am your host of Ham Radio 360, the executive producer here for the podcast, the website, everything we do, man. We're just so tickled you're here. I really am. I mean, this is an exciting time of the year. My kids are going crazy somehow. I don't know how, because I normally intercept these things as they approach the house, but the Toys R Us catalog has made it into the house. My kids have already lost their mind. Y'all be praying for me, please, because it gets crazy with 5 in the house, all trying to fight over the catalog. And I'm thinking, come on, guys, let's get your license and let's buy some radios. And that's what we're going to talk about in this show. Episode number 21, episode number 39, those are both our previously recorded shopping shows. If you haven't heard those, or maybe it's been a while since you have, and you're looking to buy something, you may want to give those a listen, because we cover the bases, the ground bases. Okay, what do we want to buy? What would we buy if we needed something to fit in this particular spot? Well, those shows. This show's going to be a little different, and the difference is we're talking about what's happened since the last program we recorded, trying not to rehash all the same stuff, because you guys look at the catalogs, you guys scan the websites, you know what's out there. But there's been some new stuff that's been released to the hobby since last Christmas, and especially since Hamvention. So we're going to talk about some of those things with our buddy George and Jeremy. Now, it's been a while since those two cats were on the show, and I'm really excited to bring them back on, because we have so much fun when we're on the air together. Now, I cannot take any credit for this program and the structure of it. This was George's idea. He said, let's do it different this year. I said, hey, that makes a lot of sense to me. Let's get going. So we had a great time recording it, and I hope that you enjoy the show as well. You know it's Christmas time, or at least it's getting close to Christmas, when Richard starts throwing out these crazy deals from Main Trading Company online. You know, I get these emails in the middle of the afternoon, sometimes in the middle of the night. Oh, you're not going to believe what we're doing down here. We're going to sell these DMR radios for $81. Oh, we sold out of those, so we're going to sell these DMR radios for $91. Oh, I want to have the best price on the internet on the new Kenwood Tri-Band Handy Talkie, so we're going to sell it for $638 with free shipping. Yeah, right now, the best price on the internet for the brand new Kenwood Handy Talkie, you know, the one with 220, D-Star, 2 meters 440, APRS, TNC, etc., etc. They've got it in all of the Kenwood gear right now online at mtcradio.com. Got a great package purchase with the TS590SG along with a microphone. Really great deals. You're going to find the best deals for your Kenwood gear needs every single time down at mtcradio.com. Let Richard, Christine, Tammy, Danielle, Chris, let them know that you heard about them here on the show and that you're wanting to shop with them, because I told you that you could get the best deals with them. Let them know. They'd love to hear from you, and they cannot wait to share with you the best amateur radio buying experience you've ever had. It's mtcradio.com. Yes, so very, very special welcome back to George and Jeremy. It's been at least 10 episodes that we've had them here on hamradio360.com, the podcast. They've been killing it, not people, just the numbers, guys. And welcome back in. So nice to be able to chat with you here on the big show.
Well, thanks,
hey, Cale, thanks.
Cale. Yeah, I feel like we have been on a whirlwind, thrill-a-minute, nonstop tour, and a tour de force, and we've come back to the home mothership to rest for 5 minutes.
Yeah, welcome back. You have no editing to do.
That really is key. And more importantly, this probably won't be a 4.5 hour long show.
No, I can promise you we're not going down that road today. George, great to hear you back in there laughing again, man. Really appreciate what you guys are just doing a great job. And on behalf of myself and all of the listeners, we really appreciate you guys really putting the time into the workbench. It's been a hit, and look forward to continuing having it hit every other week.
Oh, we've been having a blast, and I've learned a ton. It's been really fun working with Jeremy and learning stuff from him and all the great guests we've had, and and the topics have been really a lot of fun. So it's been very educational for me, and really I enjoyed a ton, and we're really grateful for all the great listeners and the listener feedback. It's been really a total joy, frankly.
It's been
and I'll add to that. I'll add to that that much like Faux Time, not expecting it to last more than 5 episodes. We originally sat down and talked. I think we outlined maybe 6 or 7. Knew we could stretch it to 10, but we've already got another. We've already got more content lined up. Some guests we're working on getting in, and looks like we're gaining momentum.
Kind of makes you feel like Sally Field. They like me. They really, really like me.
Well, at least they're subscribing. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, they like us, but they're coming back. They haven't deleted us yet. So.
Well, what's been also really fun is reading the Facebook comments and commenting back, because we get a lot of good feedback that way, and a lot of encouragement. And those little comments like, "Hey, I like this episode. You had a good guest, and now I'm motivated to go do that thing you talked about," is very rewarding for us. And we really, really appreciate the feedback that we get online as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, all the way around. It's great to make that connection. I was never I didn't have a Facebook account till I had a podcast. And I can't say that you're going to go on there and find pictures of my kids and my family and anything like that, but you will find me interacting about the hobby, and George and Jeremy as well. So thank you guys for all your connections. It really does mean a lot to hear back from you, the listener, as we do our thing here on the shows. Now, this is our annual shopping show, but we're going to do it a little different this year than we have in the past the last 2 years, matter of fact. Episode number 21 and episode number 39 are our former shopping shows, where we covered really the basics of VHF, UHF, handy talkies, entry-level HF rigs. If you're looking for some information about, what to buy for your car, and you want to buy a new mobile dual band radio with a crossband repeater, what should I buy? Go back and listen to episode number 39. Now, we'll have it linked in the show notes, of course, but there's been a lot happen in the amateur radio hobby vending this year, especially since Hamvention, and that's kind of what we want to talk about this time through, is what's new, what's coming, and some experiences we've had with some brand new stuff. And I don't think that we have any better place to start than with the ICOM IC7300, Jeremy. I mean, it's just been, it's wow. It's kind of like just whoa, it showed up, and we're all still excited about it.
Yeah, you kind of hit the nail on the head that previously we were talking about great analog radios and what we liked, and a lot of these radios were 3, 5, 10 years old. This year, when we look at what's out there, I mean, so many things have happened on the software-defined radio front. So many things have happened on the digital radio front. The landscape really is changing, and I think starting to shift. I mean, we had the one holdout from the digital wars, if you will, pick a side with Kenwood releasing a D-Star radio. So all of these things are pretty excited. The 7300 is particularly notable because it is the first, may not be the right word, because again, as when we talked about this in a previous episode, I don't know if the FT DX3000 technically counts as an SDR, but it had a waterfall display. But it's at the time was a $3,300 radio, whereas you have the 7300. It's in a small form factor, really bright screen, gives you that full SDR experience all in one box. And I think now they're selling for under $1,400.
Yeah. At NTC Radio, they're a lot under $1,400, and I can't say that there's going to be a big Christmas special, but I anticipate something big from Richard this year on the 7300.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a built-in tuner. You've got a nice, big, bright touchscreen. That I took this radio to field day, which is kind of funny because the radio, admittedly, it's not meant to really be operated in a field day or in a situation where you have a lot of other stations that are close in who have antennas close together, because the front end just really isn't designed for that level of sensitivity or not sensitivity, but protection, if you will. But the radio held its own, and I had a lot of people who have never used one of these, like they weren't familiar with ICOM radios. They had never used a 7100, and I had a lot of people sit down and just start pushing things, and it was very intuitive, very easy to use. Late at night when the bands were a little quieter, rather than tuning and listening, you could very quickly just expand how much bandwidth the radio was showing you on the screen, and then quickly spin over to where you saw signals were happening. It really is just a completely upgraded total HF experience.
Nice. George, have you had your hands on one of those yet?
Only very, very briefly. So I just got to spin the knob and listen a little bit and touch the touch screen. So I have not had a chance to really use it.
Well, my majority experience has been with Jeremy and his exuberance with the radio, but I'm friends with some other people as well, and everybody that gets one says they cannot believe how well this thing hears. They cannot believe how easy it is to operate and what a joy it is to have in the shack. So I'll say it. I say it every show nearly when we talk about our sponsorship from ICOM and MTC Radio. It has got to be one of the hottest selling rigs on the market right now, and everybody that I have spoken to that has one has loved it. So I think we can kind of most assuredly say unto you that if you're looking for a new HF rig, the 7300 is a great place to start.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard the same thing from a lot of guys here in the neighborhood who are hams, and one in particular, my buddy John KJ6K, who he and I designed the repeater controllers that we make. And John is super picky. He's a really brilliant guy and very picky when it comes to electronics. And the funny thing is, the radio he's been using on HF is an ancient, old ICOM. I can't remember what the number is, but a really old one. And I've been ribbing him for years to buy a new radio. And he's like, no, I don't know. And so after a long time, one day he just went off and bought the 7300, and he loves it.
Wow.
He's very, very picky, and it was kind of a big deal to get a nice new radio. And so, Cale, everybody that I've talked to, and people I don't know, even just casually listening on the air, you hear a lot of guys on raving about them. So, it sounds like a big plug, but really, I think it's probably in the price range. Well, there's other good radios too, but in that price range, it's probably the hottest radio right now.
Yeah, and that's what we're talking about. Go ahead, Jeremy.
I'll add, by the way, I just looked, and actually this is on mtcradio.com. This is listed for $13.59 right now. Wow. I think when we got together last year, one of the radios we were really buzzing about was the recently upgraded Kenwood TS590 SG, which was basically the darling for high performance radios under $1,500. And the 7300 comes out, and in a lot of ways really pushes that radio to the back of the class as far as, it's about the same price, and you get a lot more features basically with the 7300. It's really hard to make a compelling argument, in my opinion, to go out and buy a 590 SG unless you were just a total Kenwood fanboy. Now, a couple other things that I will comment. First of all, the radio comes with a mic, but I had a Heil headset that had the ICOM adapter, and I ended up taking it out to field day just to have for isolation for myself, and I will tell you that it made a significant difference in the audio, my audio output. And I could tell this because the radio has a monitoring function, and the audio was just much punchier, a lot tighter in. It definitely, I think, made a big difference in my signal going out. The other thing I'll say is that it does have a built-in tuner that will only do up to 3-to-1 match. So I paired mine with an LDG AT100 Pro 2, which gives you a much wider matching range and some other like power metering and real-time SWR meter functions. But that is also a worthwhile thing to use with it.
Very good. It was, talking about the Heil headset, it was Bob that told us that this was a game changer when we spoke to him in Havvention. So
it was. And what the thing that it's really interesting is this radio punches way above its weight class. This radio performs far better than it has any reason to, and to me is just, I mean, if this is what they can do at the $1,500 range, you're getting a performance you normally would reserve for $3,000 or $3,300 radios. You know, they announced this year that there will be a 7610 replacing the venerable 7600. It will be based on a similar architecture. I expect that radio will be more for contesting. I would expect that it will have a beefier front end with more protection, not a radio that won't get overloaded so easily, and have even more features. But given what comes out of the box of this, like I'm sitting here and it's difficult for me to even dream what that radio could have in it.
George, you know a little bit more than Jeremy and I do about the 7610 because you've been on with the ICOM reps. I think you're a little excited about that rig. Are you going to buy one?
Oh, it's tempting. I've got a 7600, and it's a great radio. It's built like a tank. It's mechanically just superb, and of course it performs really well. And I've been pretty happy with it. And I toggle back and forth between that and the K3. Those are the two main HF rigs. Truthfully, I don't need two, but I'm lucky enough to be able to have two. But at this point, I'm kind of tempted to sell the 7600 and get the 10 when it comes out. And if that's going to happen, I should probably get to it because
before they come to market,
10 comes out, the price of the 7600 on the used market is going to go through the floor.
Yep.
By the way, if you want to get some fairly objective receiver performance comparison, a big tip for the listeners is you could go to Sherwood Engineering and look at their rankings of receiver performance. And to some degree, this is kind of going over the edge and looking at numbers to determine what the best radio is. And honestly, most of us can't tell the difference. But it does give you a professional analysis, a comparison between the leading radios. And on the Sherwood list, the 7300 is in the number 13 position out of all the radios that they've tested, which is very, very competitive.
And on that list is like the Flex 6700, the Elecraft K3S, the K3, the Hilberling SDR radio, which costs like $17,000, the Yaesu FTDX 5000. I mean, a lot of these radios are venerable benchmarks in contesting, and then some of the newer SDR stuff from Flex and Apache. I mean, the radio is like the weird kid that shows up at the party and everybody wonders how they got an invitation. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah, it's really good. By the way, comparing to the 59 or 590, the 590 fares very well also, but it's in number 15 position. So on receiver specs. Again, truthfully, you can't tell the number 15 from the number 13 radio, but it does give you a sense that the caliber of the radios are very good at that price point. To your point, Jeremy, and the radios that are above it, all the ones you mentioned there, they're all significantly more expensive. They're all at least twice the price or more. The only one that's in that category at about the same price point is the Elecraft KX3, which is in about the number 5 or 6 position, which is pretty good by itself. But that's also a 12 to 15 watt radio, not a 100 watt radio, and there's no spectral display. So for a home radio or a portable, let's say, take it camping kind of radio, although I'd kind of hate to do that. I think the 7300 is definitely the one to look at this point. So back to your question, Cale. Yeah, I'd seriously think about the 7610. I mean, if I were willing to spend $3,000 on a radio, then it would certainly be right up there.
Yeah. Well, we've spent a lot of time on the 7300 on this show, and I think it's been deserved. I think that ICOM is to be commended for what they've done with that darling of the industry right now. But Yaesu dropped a new one on us back at Hamvention, and it had everybody kind of wondering as we were going into the convention what actually it was going to be. What was it going to replace, and what was it going to become? And it's kind of made its own place, and that is the FT891. And it's just a very interesting radio to me because it really right now, the only thing that you can kind of compare it to is its brother. The 857. So,
did they discontinue the 857? Did they discontinue that one at this point? The 857?
I don't believe so. And if they have, then there are people that are selling a lot of stock. But I don't believe that it has been officially discontinued. And in all fairness, when I talked to Yaesu at Dayton, and they don't see it as a replacement because the 891 is an HF plus 6 meter only radio. It doesn't have the 2 meter or 440 built into it.
So that's kind of an odd decision in my mind. You'd think that that would be the replacement. I wonder why not.
Well, I just spoke with one of their reps earlier this week, and the way it was explained to me, and we're working to have them come on the show, by the way, but the way it was explained to me is that we being Yaesu, wanted to create an HF mobile radio that guys could use in their cars, mobile, without having so many complicated menus, so many other buttons. I haven't used one, so I can't, say one way or the other. I hear that a lot about the 857, but it's got a larger display. Of course, it doesn't have an internal tuner, but they have a matching tuner they'll sell you. But it was expressed to me that it was to be a 100-watt mobile HF radio to be used in a vehicle.
Well, when I look at that, to me, it just looks like a new version of an 857 without 2 meters, 440. So it's the form factor is the same. Now, obviously, maybe the buttons are moved around or whatnot, but it's essentially the same thing.
Well, the screen looks like it's about 40%. It maybe have like 40% more screen to look at, or maybe more than that.
There's some differences.
Hold on. There's some big differences, though, because I agree with you as far as fulfilling the role of a portable radio. First of all, it's smaller in size. Second of all, as Cale mentioned, the screen has a lot more information on it. And one thing I will say that Yaesu has done both with this and then I think it's the FT-DM1 or 100DM, they have nailed a high contrast white backlit black text display. I mean, they're beautiful. It puts the ICOM 5100 to shame. But the other thing that's a huge difference on this is that all the filtering that was available on the 857 and the 897 was all audio frequency filtering. This actually has IFDSP filtering, which is a much better performer. I was going to comment, but I don't know if it has the upgraded TCXO oscillator in it, or if that's still an option.
It does have it. According to the specs, it's got it.
So some of those things, are pretty significant upgrades. I mean, the receiver overall is a hotter and more sensitive receiver.
It's got a USB jack on it too.
Right. I mean, it's a 15-year newer model radio, so of course I would expect those sort of things, and those are all very good points. It just seems to me that while they were at it, they would have thrown it 2 and 440 and replaced the 857. That's pretty long in the tooth. So that's my my only comment, because it's so similar. It's just much newer.
It makes you wonder if they're not going to come out. Yeah, I wonder if they're going to come out with a 2 meter 440 all band all mode rig. I'm just kidding, guys. That's never going to happen.
You know what? I'm kind of wondering now, off we're in speculation land, is if they're going to come out with a replacement for the 817, because just like the 857, that 817 has been a super popular radio, and it's a dozen years old or more. Mm-hmm. And the technology's moved on, and you can build a much lower noise, better quality radio these days. And I think that they had a super winner in that 817. They sold a zillion of those things, and they're still popular today.
And I would like to have one in my shack.
I agree with you, George, because I think that actually, I know they've been focused heavily on their digital stuff. They released a ton of radios. They have one HF, well, I guess technically 2 HF radios that have the digital mode in it, which is the 991, which is the spiritual successor to the 897, which actually, just quick footnote, they also upgraded the 991 to the 991A, which I think was in direct response to the popularity of the 7300.
Yep.
They added full color waterfall display, which to me should have been a firmware update to the original radio, unless the processing couldn't handle that level of
I'm guessing they probably need another front end. They probably need another receiver front end to handle the pan adapter, because otherwise you can't do that.
Well, the previous radio has has a display. It just wasn't a colored waterfall. It was like different shades of bluish gray.
Well, the big problem with the display, the functionality, was that you could either sweep the spectrum and listen and hear nothing, or you can receive and that spectral display is frozen. So that was really a problem. So when you look at the 7300 and you see the dynamic spectrum while you're listening and tuning around, you hear signals and you see them moving on the screen, what you would expect. On the 991, it was one or the other. So you could either scan and see the signals, or you can listen.
Yes.
You couldn't do both, that was just, in my mind, the kiss of death. And I have that radio. So I'm very disappointed in that, frankly, now looking at this other gear.
Yeah, totally agree that the new radio clearly probably has a second receiver in, but I'm just talking about one of the other, I mean, the two things they advertise about that radio are, the ability to both see and listen at the same time, but they also advertise the fact that the waterfall is now a colored waterfall, which that's the thing I'm saying should have been a firmware update to the original 991 unless the processor was not powerful enough to actually use color as a dimension of data display. But it's also very interesting that this basically the 991, they did the same thing that Kenwood did with the 590. They released the 590, and as a relatively fast follow, 1-2 years later, they released the 590 SG, which has a lot of pretty good improvements in it. And I know if I had bought a 991, which I almost did 2 Daytons ago, I would be mega upset at the 991A.
So let me throw in one little plug here. So while we're on this upgradability topic, this is one of the reasons why I'm kind of an Elecraft fanboy, because in every case when Elecraft comes out with a new generation of a radio, you could buy upgrades to the older version to bring it up to speed. So I think they've done a surprisingly good job of keeping their customers updated with firmware, but also giving them hardware updates to retrofit the old gear. So my K3 here, I've got one of the original K3s. If I want to, I haven't, but if I wanted to bring it up to the current K3S with the better synthesizer and all that, I could buy that module and stick it in here and have the latest version of hardware.
Neither of my HF rigs built in 1992 can do that. It's pretty cool. Yeah,
I think that because a lot of the radio technology is going to be very firmware based, there'll be a lot more of that, and then there's some hardware that you have to swap the hardware. So it depends on whether the vendor can accommodate that. So like in this 991, there is an upgrade, by the way, for that. I believe I don't know if it's available now, but there's talk of being able to upgrade it for, I don't know what's going to cost. I'm sure it's not cheap. So I applaud them for that. If they actually do that, that would be great. And I would certainly upgrade this one.
Yeah. Well, we've covered HF radios in what we have been experiencing and been excited about over this last year as you guys get ready to open your wallets for Black Friday and Christmas shopping. We're going to take a break, but we're going to come right back and talk about QRP portable rigs. We've also got HTs and some other fun stuff coming up. So don't go anywhere. You're listening to the Ham Radio 360 podcast.
Hi, Dan, KB6NU here. Whether you're studying for your tech license or looking to upgrade to general or extra, you should check out my no-nonsense amateur radio license study guides. Written in my easy-to-understand, no-nonsense style, they really are the easiest way to learn what you need to know to pass the test. And they are always up to date. The PDF version of the Technician Class Study Guide is free on my website at kb6nu.com/podcast. And all my study guides are available in print, PDF, Kindle, and EPUB versions. Let me help you have more fun with ham radio. Go to kb6nu.com/podcast and get started today.
Hamvention was a great, big, huge deal to me this year. Again, thank you to the audience and George and Jeremy for being there and just loving on us like you guys did. It was a great, maybe one of the coolest experiences of my life to this point, outside of marriage and kids and stuff. It was just a great experience. I didn't ever anticipate the opportunity to be able to do that. And one of the cool things about it, we talked about the IC 7300 that happened there. And how could we ever get over the fact that, for all intents and purposes, we broke the story on the KX2 because George was there for 4 days in May and got a great interview with Eric. And, man, it was just – he sent it. We got it out. People went crazy. Our numbers just – it was stupid. And it was an amazing kickoff to the new Ham Radio 360 brand. And, man, the KX2, still don't have one, but those are just – I really need one if you guys are listening. Elecraft, it's KX2 for Kel. But yeah, I can't speak from experience other than just wanting one really bad. But George, tell us, you've got one of the very first ones. How have you enjoyed your KX2?
Oh, it's awesome. I got like number 28. So when I was at the 4 Days in May, as you mentioned, I talked to Eric, and we got to interview him, and he was very gracious in making his time available. He did the keynote speech, and right after that, he sat down and we talked for about 45 minutes about the KX2 and the design behind it. And then later on at Field Day, we had a chance to talk to Wayne, who's the key designer on the KX2, and so many other things as the co-founder of Elecraft. But I love it. I've been a really big QRP, small portable HF radio buff for many years, and was one of the first builders of a K2. So the first radio they came out with was the K2. So I was what they called a field tester. I was one of the first 100 to build the radio. So I've been messing with Elecraft radios from the beginning, and I was so excited to see this one because it really packed a lot of high-performance radio in a very small portable package, and it really delivers. So I'm very happy with it. I've used it quite a bit, and I got to tell you, it's, in my personal opinion, it's the HF portable radio to go with because the size and weight versus the feature set is a very good balance. So I can't say enough good things about it, frankly.
Well, we've talked about it a lot, and we've talked about the KX3 for Kale a lot too, and we've talked about other portable QRP type rigs on our past shows. I want to remind our listeners, you can go back and listen to episode 21, episode 39, both there in the show notes, as well as Eric's interview about the KX2 coming right off of the stage there at the 4 Days in May. Again, if I could have one, I would have it. It would be so much fun. I just, I probably wouldn't use it in this fashion, but the walkie-talkie style way that you can use it, that just looks so freaking cool as a kid from the 1980s. It just makes you want one even more.
Yeah, I have zero desire to try that. Truthfully.
But up at Dayton, we had guys doing it right there in front of us.
Yeah, we did.
It was awesome.
It was pretty. Yeah, that's a real chick magnet when you walk around the Safeway parking lot with one of those.
Piccolo's in the parking lot with one, probably. Go ahead.
There's just so many great small HF QRP radios, and there's so many people that want to operate portable. And I think a lot of it is driven by the fact that you can't operate HF in a lot of people's homes because there are HOA restrictions, or they just can't put up a big antenna. So field operating is very popular. And in fact, our friend Stuart, who's the National Parks on the Air king, he's activated, it must be over 50, 60 national parks easily at this point. And so he's a good example of getting out there and operating. And so the KX2 is just like the perfect rig for that sort of thing, whether it's travel or hitting the trail or doing soda. It's great. The reason I like it is because it's very small, and the performance is very good. It's got a great receiver. It puts out 10 watts across all the bands, built-in tuner, and even the built-in battery is good. On the KX3, I always wind up using an external battery because I want to get the voltage high enough to put out full power. Because on the KX3, if you use the built-in batteries, you're limited to 5 watts. With the KX2, with the built-in battery, the thing puts out 10 watts. So it's just a super little radio. I can't say enough good things about it.
So what would a good portable radio be without a good portable antenna? And Pactenna has really stepped up their game. I don't say improved because the Classic is amazing. But tell us a little bit about what happened with Pactenna this year.
Oh, sure.
Because we're all excited about what's going on there.
Sure. Well, we launched the Pactenna Mini, so the different versions, the 9-to-1 random wire antenna and the end-fed half-wave, and we've sold a ton of them. They've been very, very popular. I think we're lucky because the KX2 is the perfect match, or the KX3 is a perfect match for the Mini, because you want a small antenna that's easy to deploy and easy to put away and weighs very little, but gives you good antenna performance. And so the Minis have been super popular, and we also redesigned the original Pactenna 1-to-1 Ballon, the feed point, and made it smaller. So it's electrically the same, but it's physically smaller, so it's more compact. So those have been very popular also. And we have a new thing we're going to we're going to prototype, which is kind of a crossover between the Mini and the traditional Pactena. And I haven't talked about it publicly yet, but it's basically taking the concept of the Mini's wire winder layout, but putting the one-to-one balun on there so you can make a link dipole version of a Mini. And it's a little bit longer because we're expecting you're going to have more wire. So instead of being 5.5 inches long, it's about 7 inches long, maybe a little bit longer. And you can make, let's say, like a 40 meter or 20 meter inverted V, and have the balun and the winder and everything all integrated together. So we're going to get some of those circuit boards in the next few weeks and build a few prototypes, and maybe get some listeners who want to build one and try it out and see what they think.
Jeremy, did you know that? I had no idea. That's news to me.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
brand new. We just sent off for the boards last week.
Cool. Do they have like a hook in the middle to hook it on the pole or something?
Yeah, so when Stuart did his review, which is so nice, so Stuart did a fabulous review in QST of the Pactena Mini, and one of the things that he mentioned in there that he really liked is the big hole at the top, and the hole is there to allow you to clip in a carabiner or a piece of paracord or something to hold it up if you need to hold it up in the air. So the new version of the balanced antenna, the inverted V or dipole, it has a big hole in the same place, so you can hoist it up if you don't want to support it by the wires. And you use the same kind of wire assembly technique that we had on the Pactena Classic, which is a plastic carabiner that snaps into two big loops. And then there's a strain relief to a banana plug that plugs into the board. So that way you can have different lengths of wire and snap them on. And if you want to not plug in the wires, you want to solder them on the board, there's solder pads to do that. So there's a lot of different ways you could actually use that antenna. So we're going to build a few of those up and field test them over the next couple months. And after the new year, we'll probably have those available as well. But and we also started to carry some other accessories. We've got some different lengths of coax cable. We got RG 316 Teflon skinny coax. We've got some RG58 Teflon super high quality 100% shielded coax, and we also got some standard RG58 coax. So there's a lot more stuff that's going on the website now. It's become a lot of work, I got to tell you.
Yeah, Pactena.com. Yeah, and you guys, if you can't remember that, you can look in the sidebar, and they're one of our show sponsors there, Pactena.com. George and Nick doing it big out on the left coast. There's other things happening in the QRP field, and Jeremy, you and George will be a little more up to date than I will, because I'm not a QRP guy yet. So tell us a little bit. We got some more time in this segment. Give us some more things happening right now with QRP.
So another radio that I think was pretty popular at Dayton this year, and it's not the first year it was there, but I know that I tried to get an interview with these folks, and every time I went by the booth, they were too busy, like literally. And I was there even on the third day of Dayton and still couldn't get time with them. It's an Italian company called ELAD, Echo Lima Alpha Delta, and they have a portable QRP SDR. That's kind of a hybrid radio, because it can operate in a standalone mode where you just take the radio out in the field and use it, or you can plug it into a computer to interface digital modes with it, or you can get spectrum display out. And they have a couple of options there. You can either get one big chunk of spectrum or several smaller chunks in different parts of the bands, which is pretty cool. The radio sells for 1,200 euros. I think it was selling for $1,200 at Dayton. I'm not sure what the conversion rate is right now. And there is an American supplier whose name escapes me, but I will make sure we have in the show notes. We have a friend that did purchase. This was one of his big purchases at Dayton, and he's had nothing but good things to say about it. The receiver is very good. The software is good. And it's, just a fun little, easy to use little portable QRP radio out in the field. Now, in addition to that, one of the things that we've seen overall, and especially in the last 2 years, is, there have been several QRP radios from China. There's a radio that is the X1M. More recently, there's the X108G, and I can't pronounce the name of the manufacturer of this radio. Let me look it up.
That's why we have show notes.
Yeah.
We don't speak
Xiegu,
Chinese.
Xiegu. But I know that, if I'm not mistaken, I think Nick N3WG actually bought one of these radios. And some of the earlier ones were a little hit and miss in performance. But I do expect that we will see more of these radios coming from the Far East as the years continue on.
Very good, very good. Now, in the last Workbench show, as you guys were doing your news and highlights section there at the beginning, you talked about the new comm radio, the CTX-10. Recently received my brand new, and thank you very much, Universal Radio, for still putting a catalog together, as well as HRO does a great job with their catalogs. But the new comm radio CTX-10 is, to me, a really, really interesting looking rig. Of course, I don't have any QRP rigs, so send them on. That'd be fine. But this one it looks different than what we're used to seeing with these QRP rigs. Maybe that makes it a little more intriguing. I don't know. We don't have a release date. We don't have a street price, but it's nonetheless a cool looking SDR QRP radio. Would you not say?
Yeah, these guys. The company is actually, I think it's Comm Radio, and they're based out of Colorado. They actually manufacture here in the United States. Their initial product was the CR1, which was basically a software-defined receiver, more or less in a box. The original receiver covered from basically 160 meters all the way through 440. With a gap in 6 meters, most likely because it was not a direct sampling or direct conversion radio. My guess is there was an IF or something in there. But the performance of the receiver was pretty good. The company initially was good about doing firmware updates and updating features. There's built-in DSP filtering. And the radio also had a built-in lithium-ion battery, and it was a very small package. In fact, actually, the rubber foot stoppers for the thing are comedically large compared to the size of the radio, because it is tiny, like definitely handheld. So it looks like they've taken their learnings from that. The second version of the radio, the CR1A, actually had a USB port on it, which would give you 192 kilohertz of spectrum output, which is the same bandwidth you can get out of a KX3. And now they're going to be making an actual transceiver that's going to be 160 through 10 meters, I believe. And
that's correct.
Overall, yeah, and I don't remember what the power out is. I can't remember. Oh, it's
1 to
10 watts.
1 to 10, yeah.
And the case, the newly designed case looks like it is a giant heat sink. It still has the very compact OLED display on it. It's pretty much 6 buttons and 2 knobs. So I expect it to be, very easy to use, very portable, has a single BNC connector, and then also still the internal battery. But yeah, it looks like it could be an exciting design. Again, not approved by the FCC yet, but that may be out here soon.
And it's got built-in batteries as well as an antenna tuner.
I didn't know it had the antenna tuner.
Yeah, according to this, it says it has an integrated CW reader, an antenna tuner, portability. An antenna tuner enhances portability. Sorry.
Okay, maybe, and if I did know it and forgot it since the last Workbench, a lot has happened since there.
Yeah. Well, the show was 4 hours long, so I'm just kidding, guys.
Just seemed like 4 hours. Come on.
I mean, that's one of the neat things, though, about the world we live in, where these guys, and Elecraft themselves, are using some off-the-shelf components, for synthesizers and things. And I expect that these things are just going to keep getting smaller and smaller. And another thing that's interesting about the QRP space, if you take the KX3, which is up to 15 watts, 160 through 6 meters plus a 2 meter option. You move down to the KX2, which is 80 meters through 10 meters, 10-watt radio, and it's even smaller. George, we did a video where it's basically, if you were to stack like 3 iPhones on top of one another, that's about the size of the radio. And then you keep moving down from there. I know like the LNR precision radio we mentioned is very small. This thing is going to be very small. Then you have some larger radios that, like that ELAD that can be standalone or connected to a computer. There's just a lot of options in this QRP space.
There is. And, you can go from just hardcore simple stuff, building your own CW 40-meter transceiver with through-hole parts, You can do the U-Kits thing. You can just keep going from one end of the spectrum, literally, financially, and size-wise to the other. And there's something for everyone. So a lot of cool stuff still out there in QRP. And the funny thing about it is, to me, at least in my 5 years or so in the hobby here, it seems like it's just getting more and more exciting. And even like CW, there's more people doing it. And for whatever reason, maybe it's GOAT. Maybe they just like watching the GOAT videos, and they want to be just like Steve. So who knows? Hey, we
all want to be like Steve.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to be back with George and Jeremy here in just a couple of minutes. This is our kind of a Black Friday shopping show. We've done this in the past, and we'll have the older shows in our show notes. Make sure you check that out at hamradio360.com. Coming up next, Handy Talkies. Everybody wants to buy one, and we're going to tell you about the new ones. This is K4CDN, back in a bit. I don't know if you'd call us a typical podcast or not. I'm really not trying to be determined or to be defined by someone else's definition of who we are. I think that we have a great time. We have a great group of guests and guest hosts here on the program, some of the best co-hosts that a man could ask for. And I've got to tell you, one of the greatest things, in addition to our wonderful sponsors here with the show, is the support we get from our friends in the audience, from our listeners. It's amazing to me to know that you guys want to help support what we're doing here. A big thank you to all of you who have given through this past year. For those of you who have purchased gear to help send me to the Dayton Hamvention, even those of you who very recently purchased some hats and some shirts and some patches and some toboggans, or beanies, if you want to call them that. Whatever you call them, we appreciate you buying them. It really helps. It really does, and I'm very sincerely thankful for every one of you, whether you've given or not. That's really neither here nor there. You've given me your time. And that's quite humbling. For those of you who have given financially, thank you very much. It really, really makes a difference. I'm a blessed man, and I love doing this podcast. I've got a great audience, and I thank you very much for keeping me around. It's kind of funny when people come into the hobby, the first thing they think they have to buy is a handy talkie, and maybe it's because it's the low cost thing or something. I don't know why we always kind of go back thinking we need a handy talkie. But, for me, it's what I started with, but I very rarely use them, and when I do, it's my Kenwood. But speaking of Kenwoods, there's a brand new Kenwood radio on the market that people are just kind of going crazy about right now. I don't think I haven't seen it in person because I never got over to the booth during Hamvention. But, Jeremy, you spent a lot of time looking into the new radio. Tell us a little bit about what you know about it.
Yeah, so of course, Cale, you're talking about the Kenwood THD 74 Alpha, and this is a radio actually we've talked quite a bit about on the workbench, and of course, I have railed about its price, which when it first came out, it was at $650. Currently, the major retailers are selling it for $640. I would not be surprised if this is a radio that sees a discount on Black Friday, but I don't know that for sure. So this radio is really interesting because they took basically a THD 72, which was the, probably the most well-equipped APRS dual band handy talkie that was ever designed. Has a full KISS TNC built into it. Could actually operate as a standalone digipeater. Just every the Cadillac of APRS radios. So they took that, and then on top of that, they added D-Star functionality. So the radio is compatible with all your D-Star repeaters and your hotspots. Pretty much is, in a lot of ways, function for function, similar to the venerable ICOM ID51, with a couple of exceptions. So the radio on top of that includes Bluetooth. So you can connect it to Bluetooth headsets. You can also even program it over Bluetooth because it has a Bluetooth serial profile. Has a built-in SD card slot for keeping GPS data. Has a built-in GPS, but you can track GPS data. You can load, you do programming over that. You load your firmware over that, and you can record QSOs similar to the way you can on the modern, like the ID51 or the Yaesu FT1DM or the 2DM. So, and that's not all.
There's more.
There's more. On top of that, they actually also throw in an HF receiver with DSP filtering. So that's a callback to the TH. I think it's the F6. George, is that right? The TH.
Yes. Yeah. You know that thing has an HF receiver in it, Jeremy.
That's a workbench joke, guys. If you haven't heard that one.
Well, actually, from our original, I think that was our very first show together doing the buying show was me pointing that out. But so yeah, that the THF6, has a wideband multi-mode receiver and the 220 band. So this radio, the 74, includes a much improved HF receiver with filtering, and it includes 220. So it's pretty much taking all of the features from all of Kenwood's current stable of handheld radios, and then throwing D-Star in. Actually, now that I've gone through that entire list, maybe I do feel a little bit better about the price tag.
Well, I was getting ready to ask you: do you, in your mind? I mean, it's $640 or $50. I mean, we're talking about that's what more than a lot of people will be able to pay for an HF rig. It's actually that's exactly what I paid for my big HF rig was $650. So that's I got a heck of a lot of radio in here. I mean, and that sounds like that sounds like a heck of a lot of radio there as well.
But I bet your HF rig didn't have a belt clip.
It's got a handle.
Yeah, or maybe it has an Alice pack frame.
Yeah, it's got the factory handle and feet on it.
So, one other thing, going back to comparing this as far as D-Star performance, because I mean, that's the thing. We know Kenwood knows APRS. Kenwood literally has written the book on how to do APRS well in commercial ham gear. The D-Star side, obviously, this is their first foray into it, and I've been tracking there's a Yahoo group for this radio that is frequented by Don Arnold, W6 GPS. Don has been a longtime friend of Kenwood and the company AvMap, and really been a proponent of these cool APRS integrations between products. He was able to get his hands on one of these radios a little bit early and did a ton of informative videos on YouTube, walked people through menus and those things. But this was Don's first foray into D-Star. So, one thing that's nice about that is that he kind of has, a newbie view, if you will, of how the radio is set up. And of course, the menus and things are traditional Kenwood menus where, you can remember the code numbers to get into individual items. A feature that I was really surprised that the radio had is that, ICOM, when they released I believe it was the 5100 came before the ID51 Plus. They implemented this mode called DV Fast Data, which traditionally DV Fast Data is 128 kilobit and was only available on the 1.2 gigahertz gear. What they did is they kind of took a page from Yaesu's playbook, which Yaesu, for their digital bandwidth, you can use all of it just for data. And traditionally with D-Star, approximately 2/3 of the data that's transmitted is used for voice data and error correction. And then there was always a 1200 baud channel, if you would, to be able to include data, which often would be packet data. This little sidecar was what was, all the data transmissions modes used to use, like DRATs and whatnot. But in the modern version of the ICOM implementation, you can now use the full bandwidth just for data, which gives you about, I think, 3400 baud or 3840. I get those transposed in my head. So Kenwood, and again, this was a surprise, also implemented that fast data mode. What's cool about the radio, there's a USB connector directly on it, whereas with the ICOM radios, you have to use like 42 different adapter cables to go from a tiny little 2.5 millimeter pin or jack with like 5 pins on it, to get to USB. Now, what I will say about this radio is this radio does have if you are a true D-Star purist, this radio has a couple of rough edges, but they would not deter me from buying it. One of the issues that the radio was having when it first released is that getting DPRS, which is akin to APRS, but there's a mode called DPRS-A, which formats your position data in such a way that it's compatible with ICOM, and if the repeater is set up for it, it would send that position data to APRS.FI. So people were using the radios traditionally and were not seeing their position data show up over there. And, when they started looking at how the packets were formed, something was malformed. Also, if you talk directly to another ICOM radio, that position information wasn't getting across. In the most recent firmware update, which is actually the 4th firmware update since the radio has shipped, and the radio has only been shipping since the end of September, and we're just now in the middle of November. So major kudos to Kenwood for keeping this radio up to date. They've gotten pretty close to fixing this issue because now other ICOM radios will see the position data, and we're just waiting to see if they'll actually fix it so that it mirrors the implementation that ICOM uses, throughout the system. But this radio is incredible, and I'm actually really excited. It's not available yet. Nobody's talking about it, but as George and I had discussed, if you've done all this design work and fabrication work to build the brains of that radio, the only thing you have to do is take out the 5-watt and then put in a 50-watt RF deck, and you're going to have one of the probably the most amazing mobile radio ever released by the big three.
Wow, that's quite something to anticipate.
Yeah,
tri-bender with everything else in it.
Yeah, I mean, literally everything but the kitchen sink. I mean, this I'm 99% sure this is going to be my first purchase at Dayton next year.
Wow. Now, one of the things that I was very tempted to purchase at Dayton this year, and I got to blame it on Ed, because Ed almost talked me into the ID51, and you guys have them, and y'all have talked about them a lot. We've seen maybe 2 new introductions or 2 new products in that family over the last year or so. George, tell us a little bit about the new ID51 handies.
Well, the 51 model that's just about to come out is the Plus 2 model. And the basic idea is they took the 51, which, as you said, is very, very popular. I've got a 51. That's my main D-Star handy talkie. Then they added 2 big features to it. So in the D-Star world, when you want to connect to the network, normally you would transmit into your local repeater, which is connected to the internet, and so you can gateway to other repeaters around the world. Well, if you don't have a repeater handy, or if you just want to have your own way of getting into the network without a repeater, there were a couple of these devices that were invented. One's called an access point. The first one on the market was the Internet Labs digital voice access point, the DVAP. And basically that's a little 10 milliwatt base station transceiver that plugs into your computer, and you transmit on your handy talkie across the room or across your house to this little access point, and now you can point that access point to anywhere on the internet, to any other repeater or access point or conference bridge, and talk to people. The other device, which was also originally invented by the Internet Labs guys, is called a DV dongle, and that product is just the audio codec. No radio, no radio required at all. This is just the codec chip, the chip that does the voice coding and decoding, in a little box with a USB cable, and you plug that into your computer, and then you use a computer headset, and you use your computer as a terminal to talk to the D-Star network. So it's like using Skype, but you use software to go to the D-Star network. And what this little piece of hardware does is it codes the voice in the proper format. Well, anyway, the reason I'm going through all that is those are the 2 features that are implemented in the ID51 Plus 2. So that radio will have both that codec DV dongle feature as well as the access point feature built in. So those are things that we would normally buy as aftermarket gadgets and use them to enhance our D-Star system. And this way they'll be built into the radio. So that'll come at a bit of a premium, of course. That radio is going to be, well, I want to say $550, Jeremy, if you recall.
Street price I've seen on them has been $499.
Okay, street price. I think like list is $550. So high fours. So that's certainly an interesting thing. So whether or not you go down the path of the Plus 2 model or get a regular ID51 and get these other devices aftermarket, there's 2 ways to go. In fact, on the Workbench episode 1 or 2 episodes ago, we were talking about that, and my suggestion would be to get a less expensive ID51, the current model, and one of those external devices, like a Raspberry Pi, plus one of those DVAPs or a DV4 Mini or one of the other various access point boards.
You know that ICOM really understands their audience. They've doubled the price on this handy talkie, but they painted it with a camouflage paint, so I mean,
so you can't find it.
Yeah, I mean, it looks really cool.
So,
it looks really cool. It's kind of like a Samsung kind of camouflage, like they did on their rugby phones or whatever those were that they did a while back. It's a nice camouflage pattern, really kind of mute tones. The colors look nice. But I think that you're saying, and I would have to agree, that if I were going to buy a 51, I would buy one from Richard and just buy the regular 51. What is it, A? Is that the one, the anniversary? Or
let's take just a second and kind of go through the lineage of this radio, because there have been 4 versions that are all the ID51.
Okay.
There was the original ID51, which is, basically it had the built-in use the GPS to look up in a directory that you load into the radio to find your closest D-Star repeaters. It also included the ability to record QSOs. So that was the very first version that came out. Shortly after that, they released the Anniversary Edition, which would go on to become the Plus Edition. The big difference being the Anniversary Edition was available in 5 or 6 colors. For instance, I own one of the Anniversary Editions. It came in white. It added several new features that were not available to the original 51, including it's one of the few. There's technically another one now. But you can load a repeater database in it and use GPS to find both analog and digital repeaters. So that was option 1, or feature 1. Feature 2 was it added the ability to do that fast data mode that I was talking about with the Kenwood earlier. And then feature 3 is it had the ability to interface with an Android app that's available for download in the Play Store for free. That will allow you to do things like take pictures with your app and send them to people through the radio. You could do keyboard-to-keyboard messaging. You could trade position data and map position data, and also control some of the routing and whatnot. So, I mean, the app has a few features in it. After that, they released the ID51 Plus, which was only available in black. All the existing and identical functionality as the Anniversary Edition. After the Plus, there was another run of different colors. That radio, I think they actually just called them Plus Colors. So that was at that point, the 4th iteration. It's the same functionality as the Plus. It just came in one of 5 different colors. And now we're on the Plus 2, which a couple things that are this radio seems awesome. Again, prices is a little bit up there, because if you can find the Anniversary radios, those were selling for under $300. I think as low as like $289 or $279 at one point, certainly over date. And I know Richard was blowing them out. The Plus model is no longer available. I think you can only buy the Plus colors. It's available for $409 at MTC Radio, but there's a mail-in rebate that gets that down to $360. $360. And then this new radio coming out will be, selling initially at $499. My guess is by Dayton it'll be down $50 or $100 when it is the only ID51 on the market. Yeah. But what's interesting is, number one, they've been available to purchase for a while. If you go to ICOM's website, they call it a limited edition radio, which seems odd to me given the new feature set. Maybe it's just because of the colors, and they'll eventually just have a black only option. Number 2, like I said, these radios are out there. Like you can order them. I know people are stocking them, or at least some retailers are, but I haven't found word one about them. And if you go
about the Plus 2 model?
Yes, the Plus 2 model.
I didn't think they were actually released yet.
Yeah, if I go to HRO's website right now, I will see they have stock of them at several stores.
Oh, okay.
Now, the other thing that's odd to me, if you go to ICOM's website, and I just looked at this today because it's been a while and I was hoping it was updated, the manual and the brochure listed under the Plus 2 is the manual for just the regular Plus model. There's no reference to the new functionality in it. And I haven't seen a single review on the Plus 2. I haven't seen a single video on the Plus 2 except for what came from the Tokyo Ham Fair earlier this year. So this is a radio that I think is really cool, especially if you are heavily invested in D-Star. It gives you a single device that great for traveling and things like that. But again, not much information out there about it just yet. In fact, I'm not even sure Richard has them for sale yet.
Yeah, I know that he had them pre-order, but I haven't been over to look in a while. George, you added one to our list, which was kind of funny because this was like just moments ago that this went on the list. This is not a D-Star radio. It's not a $650 or $550 handy-talkie. Well, what did you put on our list?
Yeah, I put on the Oshan KG UVD-1P, which is a mouthful. And that thing is the 2-meter and 6-meter radio. And the reason I put it on the list is that I didn't even know that thing existed until we had a conversation earlier tonight about 6 meters.
Yeah.
And for the listeners, Cale said, "Oh, well, I've got a 6-meter handy-talkie. It's an Oshan." And I thought, well, I've never heard of that. And I'm a big fan of their normal handy-talkies. And I had to look it up, and son of a gun, there's a 2-meter and 6-meter HT. So now I'm thinking maybe I have to have one of those.
I have a pair. Maybe we could talk to each other.
Yeah, maybe when there's an opening, a delay or a skip opening, we could chat from one end of the country to the other. Anyway, I was just surprised that, I bet.
Well, and if we're talking about Ocean, one of the radios that I got from Richard at Dayton, he just talked me into it, is the KG UV8D Plus. This is a version of the radio that's got the big color screen on it, but it is 2 meters, 220, and 440. And this radio is available for about $110. And, it's of the Chinese radios, I think they are definitely probably the best. Has a few quirks to it. But overall, it's the one of the analog HT that ultimately kind of gets used the most down here on the bottom story of my house, because I constantly am just throwing it around, but I have it available anytime I want to pick it up. And battery life on it is really good, and more importantly, batteries and accessories are super cheap.
Yeah. Well, George and I both can speak on their behalf. The Oshin, which is actually not spelled Oshin, Wuxan, I think Richard calls it, but that's how they say it in Texas. No offense, guys.
Actually, I have to correct myself. Editorial update. The UV8D Plus is 2 meter and 440 only. Okay. Sorry, this model is the KG UV8 Echo. That is the tri-band, and it's available for $160. It also has the crossband repeater built into it,
which is a pretty cool little trick.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So the thing about these radios that really surprised me, when they first came out, a buddy of mine bought them, and I was just giving him no end of grief because, of course, it's going to be I thought it'd be a piece of junk. And so eventually I broke down and I bought one for myself. And my absolute favorite HT at the time was the old Kenwood THF6A, which is a wonderful radio, small, very good performing radio.
Did you know that radio has an HF receiver in it?
No,
is
actually.
There an echo in here?
I have no idea. Thanks for pointing that out. So what really surprised me was the transmit audio on the UV3D, the Oshan radio, sounded about as good as the Kenwood, which has very good audio, and the receive performance was very good, and it wasn't a total misery to program. It was only somewhat inconvenient. So at that point, I thought, wow, for like $100, this is a darn good radio. And so I've standardized that one on my fleet of inexpensive HTs. I bought a few of those. So one for my backpack for day hikes, and I have one in the trunk of my wife's car and one in the trunk of my car. And for $100 a piece, if you drop it and step on it or drop it off the cliff, it's not a big deal. But you're getting performance that you would expect out of a $300 radio. So I think as you start going lower in price down into the Bofang zone, a Bofang for $30 is not at all as good as the Oshan radio for $100. So for me, that's a reasonable trade-off. I think at that point, you could say, well, is it really worth the $300 or $400 for the ICOM? Yeah, if you want the D-Star features, that ICOM is an awesome radio. Plus, it's got, like you said, Jeremy, the GPS receiver. It's got the repeater directory lookup. So there's a lot of luxury features that make it a great radio. But at $100, it's really hard to beat these Ocean radios.
Yeah, good performers. Guys, we're going to continue our conversation with something we haven't talked about on a shopping show before. You don't want to miss it. Stick around. It's Kel, George, and Jeremy here on Ham Radio 360 podcast. We're talking about it. Black Friday, Christmas time, New Year's sales. Where are you going to spend your money? Listen to Kel. You're here every week listening to the show. Listen to this man's advice. Are you ready? It's really simple. If you want the best deal for amateur radio gear, Main Trading Company is the place to shop. mtcradio.com. They've got the 7300 on sale. They've got handy talkies on sale. They've got flagship rigs from ICOM on sale. If you're looking to finally dip your toe into the D-Star pool and you're thinking really serious about an ID51, now is the time. Call Richard, call Christine. Tammy, Danielle are there. You can let them know you heard about them here on the podcast. They will save you money. You need ICOM gear, you need mtcradio.com. One of the things, in addition to digital radio, we haven't talked about here on a shopping show is software-defined radio. We've discussed software-defined radio, but maybe not entry-level software-defined receivers. And want to talk about those right now. And like I told the guys offline, when I use my SDR dongle, I call Gerald on the phone to get it running. So I'm not the guy to educate you here. But I've got two really smart guys here with me again, George and Jeremy on the show, and we're going to talk about shopping for some SDR stuff. Go ahead, Jeremy. What you got?
So, when we talk about SDRs, there are really high-end radios like the Flex 6700, the Anon 100 and 200. There was a Russian company that we met at Dayton that I can't remember their name, but they have some incredibly well-spec'd and cool SDR equipment that is hybrid that can be standalone or used as computer-controlled SDRs. Not really going to cover that stuff primarily because I really want to focus on, again, getting people into understanding the brilliance of SDR. And like a lot of things in our amateur hobby, things from the Far East create very low barriers to entry to play with this. And truthfully, just about everything I'm about to cover could almost be stocking stuffers. So the very first thing that I would recommend, and we covered this in the SDR show that Gerald and I did, but there is RTL SDR v3. This is another USB stick that plugs into your computer, has an SMA connector on it, is available on Amazon for $25. $25.
That's a deal.
And it is a receiver that gives you from 500 kilohertz to 1.8 gigahertz.
Is that the one that comes with two antennas?
Yes, it comes with one antenna base. Then you can screw the actual antennas on and off. It comes with a short little collapsible one, and then a very large collapsible antenna.
Yeah, that's the one to buy, guys. Buy it. It's $25. Buy it.
Yes, and this is the software. There's several different software packages that can use these things, and depending on how advanced you want to get, and that's beyond the scope of this. But if you're a Windows user, there's an application called SDR Sharp. That are pretty much compatible with these things out of the box. But it will really give you a taste of the power and why SDR matters. I can't remember what the bandwidth of these are. I think it's a couple, maybe a megahertz or 2 megahertz. I don't remember off the top of my head. But the first time that you're actually able to see all of 2 meters on the screen at once, and you start seeing repeaters coming up, and then you start seeing the inputs coming up when people are closer to you. I mean, that it's really powerful. And then from the software side of it, you can do everything from using these things to capture APRS packets to actually building a Project 25 scanner using freely available software without giving $500-600 to Uniden or Whistler.
That trunk tracks is what he's saying, right?
Yeah, trunk and does the digital decoding. Yeah. So again, incredibly powerful, and at $25, there's no excuse not to get it. Now, if you want to move up from there and get something that is really a nicer engineered piece of equipment, the big things being is that you're going to have more bandwidth. The receiver circuitry is going to be quieter, so you're going to have more sensitivity and selectivity. You're going to have more sensitivity. Selectivity is a software function, and SDR is not a hardware function. Also going to be that DC to about 1.8 gigahertz, but there is a company called AirSpy AirSpy has two models. They have the AirSpy R2, which allows you to see up to 10 megahertz of bandwidth in the computer. And then this year they released the AirSpy Mini, which is, again, it's actually very similar to that RTL SDR package. The circuitry is relatively different, but this form is about the size of a large thumb drive. But the cool thing about this is this is manufactured by the people who write the SDR Sharp software. So when you plug this in and run SDR Sharp, you actually get a lot more options based on things they have put into their board. But again, overall, the AirSpy Mini gives you up to 6 megahertz of bandwidth, which is plenty for a lot of applications. The AirSpy Mini is available for $99, which is awesome. I realize I just misspoke. Earlier I said it did DC to 1.8. That's not quite true. It'll do in the low 20s to 1.8. If you want to get full HF, then there's another thing that you would buy, which is basically it's a transverter. And they sell a box called the Spyverter. And what this does is this gives you good HF performance through the dongle into the software. And like I said, it's just a transverter. You plug the antenna into it, you plug it into the dongle, and then you flip an option switch in the software to tell it you're using the transverter, and then you can see HF. And it's available for $49. Those are all available. The AirSpy stuff is all available at airspy.us. Which is the American distributor. We interviewed those guys at Dayton. They were phenomenal. I bought an AirSpy from them. I love it. It is a wonderful tool. I still have my RTLs, which I'll use like for remote capture on a Raspberry Pi. But a lot of fun to do receiving, and it's also cool to just let it run and see what's going on in your neighborhood. I mean, for instance, I was surprised to see my power meters. The power meters in our neighborhood squawking away. And if I wanted to, I can get software that will actually decode what they're saying.
Nice.
So, a good year, Christmas time, low cost, somebody, you're the ham that has everything. You haven't gotten an SDR yet. This is a good year to do it because there's a lot of affordable and good equipment on the market.
And we've got a lot of SDR shows in the back catalog as well. And one pretty recent with JNU when he came back from the GNU Radio Conference. There was a lot of, if nothing else, you've got some good software mentioned there to get you pointed in the right direction. I don't have a lot of time to sit around and listen to stuff. I have to kind of move around throughout the day and whatnot. But I do get mine out from time to time. And usually it is a text to Gerald if I stumble over something. But it is a lot of fun to listen to and to watch. I'm a former firefighter, love listening to that kind of stuff on the scanner. And it's really cool to be able to see all the different TAC channels and what up as they light up during calls and whatnot. So it's may not be what you're into right there, but it does a lot more than just listen to fire dispatch and calls. A lot of great stocking stuffers, and you should consider that type of stuff stocking stuffer stuff. The RTL SDR dongle is, if you don't have one, you're behind Kale, because Kale's got about 4. So you guys are way behind the 8 ball. I know there's some other stocking stuffer ideas. George, did you have any ideas for some stocking stuffer stuff?
There's one thing that I would suggest, especially if you want to give somebody a present. A good present might be something under $100 that you probably would put off and not buy yourself. And my favorite example of that is a power pole crimping tool and extra connectors. So we've talked a lot on the show about the value of power poles and standardizing on those and replacing all your connectors for 12 volts with power poles. And you could solder the connectors, or you can crimp them, or crimp and solder. But the ratcheting crimper makes that so much easier. And I think they're about $35 or $45. So it's the sort of thing you look at and think, I don't know if I want to spend $50 or whatever on a crimper, but it makes a great present, because once you get it, you love it.
Oh yeah. I bought myself one. I bought myself one. I bought it at Shelby. I bought the set from the Wireman with a bunch of different teeth, and it's
great. Yeah.
I've done Stacon, I've done Anderson. I haven't done any coax yet, but that's one of the reasons I bought it, was to start doing crimping on coaxial cable.
So how much was that set with the multiple dies?
The one from him was $80.
Oh, not bad.
Yeah, not bad. It was a little bit less than the Quicksilver. The Quicksilver might have been might have had one more set of dies in it. I'm not sure, but I was standing right there. They're local to me. They do a great business for me. The Wireman does, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to just keep my money right here at home. So I did.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
So that sort of stuff to me is like the perfect gift, because you could, you could just not ever buy that sort of thing. Yeah. And when you get it, you think, oh man, what?
How'd I do without
I'm so
it?
grateful.
Yeah.
Exactly. How to do without it. And along with it, maybe a bag of those power pole connectors.
Yep.
For $15 or whatever, you get 20 connectors. So per connector, they're pretty cheap. So that's a great thing to have. So that would be my top pick for your favorite ham who doesn't have everything. Jeremy,
what would you toss in the stocking for somebody, your favorite ham that didn't have maybe something really cool?
This is something that, going back to the RTL SDRs, this is something that they sell as an accessory kit for their boards, but they sell a selection of adapter cables, pigtails, that are SMA male on one end and terminate to all kinds of stuff, BNC, UHF, N. I think they even have F and TCX in there. But this kit is available on Amazon. It's $19, and you get all these pigtail adapters, which, it's always good to have adapters, but especially now that with things like these hotspot boards that have SMA connectors, you have all these different digital HTs that have SMA connectors that you may want to connect to a bigger antenna. I think it's just a handy set of adapters to have hanging around. And at $19, I mean, that's truthfully better than a lot of Hamfest prices for buying these like short little 1 foot RG174, RG316 jumper cables.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, one of the things that we have not mentioned at all is our antenna analyzer kit from the Workbench podcast. George, how far away do you think we are from getting those kitted and in the mail?
Well, we should have the circuit boards, I would guess, in the next week.
Okay.
And by the time we get those out and ready to process orders, I'm thinking about 2 weeks from now on the circuit boards.
Okay.
The common parts you can get off DigiKey now. We've published the bill of materials, and there's a single click on the web. You can click it, and it'll take you right to DigiKey and populate your shopping cart with all the common parts. And then the other parts, there's just 2 or 3 more things, and you buy those from various vendors on the web and get them pretty quick. I know some of the listeners are already getting their parts kits. I see that on the Facebook page.
Yeah. Well, we've opened a forum up on the hamradio360.com site as well. It's the far right-hand side, our top bar, menu bar on the top, on the far right-hand side says forum, and you can go there. It's got the parts list and everything you need to get started. And as soon as we have those board kits available, I promise you we'll let you know and have them in our store to sell them to you. But that would be an additional nice little gift to leave in someone's stocking for them. This thing's probably going to come in under what do you think it's going to be, all parts combined?
Oh, I think if you really shop and buy the least expensive version of everything, you could get it down to about $50.
There you go. That's a nice gift for a buddy.
And the thing is, we instead of doing one big kit where you get everything together, the feedback we got from listeners on this, which we did request feedback, was people were really trying to aim for that like $50, $60 sweet spot. Mm-hmm. And by allowing people to source things themselves, they're going to be able to do it. And quite frankly, a lot of the parts that are in the order from DigiKey are the types of things that you may already have laying around your shack.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you what,
right.
I ordered the whole thing from DigiKey. It was $20, I think, and then maybe $10 shipping to the house. And I ordered it, and within 2 hours, I got shipping notification that the package was actually shipped. It wasn't just created a mailing label; it was actually shipped on the way. So they're turning them out quick if you want to go ahead and get your order in over there, DigiKey. All right, so before we go, I want to take another break and come right back, and we're going to talk about some free stuff, okay? And everybody loves free stuff. Of course, we made you wait to the end, but we're going to talk about it here in just a second on Ham Radio 360 Podcast. Yeah, so right before we left to go to that last break there, we wanted to kind of give you a little heads up that we're going to have some free stuff coming your way, and there's nothing better than free. Although the old saying goes, there's no such thing as a free lunch. It just may not cost you anything in the end. So we got some free stuff. I've got some toboggans, and I've got some patches that I would like to give away. And this is going to be really simple, guys. You go to the website and you sign up for our newsletter/contest link, and it's up there on the top right-hand side, right below where the new show posts. If you have any questions, you can let me know that you can't find it. But if you've already been a member of our list from the Photon Podcast, you may find yourself already in the running for the winning. So that would be kind of cool. But go ahead and put your email address in there and let us know that you want to be entered into the contest. We do have toboggans, that's what we call them down here in South Carolina. Some people call them beanies. They turn out to look really good. And I've got some scattered all across the country so far, and can't wait to see those on some of our listeners' heads. I've got some patches as well we're going to throw in there. And, George, I think that you want to come through with something as well.
Yeah, we're going to cough up a Pac-10 Mini.
Nice.
So we'll put that on the pile for the listeners. So sure, I'd be happy to donate one of those.
Is that kind of like
which
a fur
version?
ball?
Gosh, which version? Probably the 9-to-1.
So that's what I went with. That's versatile.
It's yellow.
Yeah, it's very versatile, and it's the most popular antenna we've got. So we probably put out 2-to-1 of the Pac-10 random wire 9-to-1s over the 50-to-1s. But yeah, they're the most popular. So yeah, we'll give away one of those.
Cool. And again, all you have to do is just enter. That's it. I mean, we're not going to charge you anything. Well, maybe. I'm just kidding. Really, it's free. It's free. Just sign up.
Hey, Kel, I got a question for you.
Sure.
So are the hats are really called toboggans where you are?
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because when what was it, one of those movies, one of the Christmas movies years ago, a sled is called a toboggan.
Well, yeah, exactly.
But growing up
out here,
they were called toboggans. Is what my dad actually called it, a toboggan. And I don't know why. It may just be a Nelson thing. I don't know, but it's what we call them.
It's a Nelson thing.
Somebody help me out there, y'all. I don't know. Yeah, but it's a beanie. What do you call that sort of hat in California? I mean, of course, you really don't need them unless you're up north.
No, but you know what the weird thing is? That's like super popular amongst kids. That it could be a 75 degrees and there's a kid with a stretchy hat over his head, and I don't get it. I don't know.
Take your toboggan off, boy. Snowflake. Anyway.
I'll try that next time.
Yeah. They'll look at you kind of funny. So thank you, George, for that gift to our listeners, Pac-10 Mini. I'm telling you guys that you get it, you're going to love it. It's phenomenal. So we got friends and listeners all over the U.S. and the world. There's a great Yahoo group for the Pac-10. I mean, I don't want to go too far with it, but it is a great product. And if you guys are doing QRP portable rig stuff, enter. Maybe you'll win it. It's a lot of really cool stuff in a very small package. And finally, we got a gift from our buddies down in Maine Trading Company, Richard and Christine, Tammy and Danielle, Chris. They have sent us a Tytera MD380 DMR radio to give away to one of our lucky listeners here in the States, in the United States of America. I'm sorry, I can't ship that internationally. I don't have but two arms to pay for that, but it's free, and we need you to sign up for it. A big thank you again to our friends at MTC Radio for doing that for you. But it is the UHF version of a DMR radio, the one we've been bragging on throughout the show. So all of those things and maybe some more giveaways that we may come across, we want to share them with you, and we can do that by having you sign up for the contest giveaway on the right-hand side of the hamradio360.com podcast website. So get over there, get signed up. Let's try to get this done maybe before Christmas. I don't know that I can get it in your hands before Christmas, but let's try to get this thing wound up before Christmas and get signed up, and we'll do a drawing on an upcoming podcast here on Ham Radio 360. That sound good to you guys?
Sounds
cool.
Great.
Now, before I let you go, because I've really enjoyed having you on. It's been so long, and it's been kind of a challenge at times. But man, I've really enjoyed what you guys are doing. Just so appreciate the hard work you guys are putting out. I know that you guys have a show coming up next week. Can you tell us? Do you want to tell us what it's about or no?
Sure. We're actually going to be doing a holiday shopping guide for workbench stuff.
Ah, that'll be pretty cool.
Yeah, it'll be just like this show, except more solder.
Way more solder.
More solder and less lettuce. I mean, kale.
Lead and unleaded.
Right.
Well,
Cool.
actually, unless you live in California, in which case,
all unleaded.
It's all unleaded.
No regular out there. They don't know what regular is. That's okay. Well, we got free stuff to give away. Don't forget to sign up. Again, thank you, George and Jeremy, for coming on here. I know it's it's been a while, but it's great seeing you guys having fun over there on the workbench, and can't wait to have you back here on this show to talk some more stuff as time goes on.
Well, and we really appreciate being able to do the workbench, Cale. So thanks for being the father of that and really running the whole show here. So thank you.
Well, it takes a village.
Thank you.
It does take a village, and we're working hard, guys, to keep it going for you. Thank you so much for all our sponsors. George Pactena, especially, thank you very much, mtcradio.com. You know, I've been saying that for 3 years, and I still find my friends and people that I know shopping somewhere else, and I don't know if they're just not listening to me. Maybe they have a really good relationship over there, but if you don't have a favorite amateur radio store to buy from, take it from me. Shop with mtcradio.com. You will not be disappointed, I promise you. Scout's honor, whatever you want to say, they'll do you right, guaranteed. So make sure you check out our show sponsor, MTC Radio. Hey, in addition to that, the New Year's coming, and we want to hear from you what you want to hear us talking about. Of course, George has already mentioned a time or two the great interaction we're getting on Facebook and Twitter. Love making that connection with you. Of course, our emails work as well, and we love to hear from you. So the forum is now up and running on the website, and we're talking about the antenna analyzer build kit thing that we're getting together. So it's all there. Just go to hamradio360.com and make it your favorite. We'd love to have you. Guys, again, thanks so much for being here, and we'll catch up with you soon.
All right, 73.
73. Thanks, Cale. See you, Jeremy.
See ya.
So that's a wrap. We're done. And all that's left is the crying, as my grandfather used to say. The money's spent, and we're just waiting on the credit card receipt, the bill to come back in. We really do hope that you enjoyed the program and hope that you'll come back and listen next week. George and Jeremy will be here without me. Oh, I know it's tough, isn't it? I'm just kidding. They'll be here without me, and they'll be doing a workbench shopping show. So we're going to hit you 2 weeks in a row, man. We're getting into your wallet big time. I'm just playing. But if you do need some gear, remember, our friends at Main Trading Company, they'll do their best to get you the best deal on the planet and get the gear in your hand very, very quickly. We appreciate you again listening. Very special thank you to George and Jeremy. Thank you so much, guys, for the hard work that you're putting in to the Workbench Show. Just got word that they're going to be doing a continuation, of course, and really, really hoping to get those boards in my hand soon. Speaking of, as soon as the boards for the Antenna Analyzer project are in my hand, I can calculate the shipping. We'll put them on the internet, okay? They'll be on the website store. You can purchase them from there. If you've got questions about that project, go to the website, hamradio360.com. Far right-hand side, you see a tab there for forums. You click it, open the forums. That's what the forums are about, the Antenna Analyzer project. Don't forget, too, that we've got a contest coming up. We're going to be giving away some radios and some gear. We just talked about it. And you can sign up for the link there on the website, hamradio360.com. Contest link, contest entry right there at the top of the page. Appreciate you guys. Hope you have a marvelous Thanksgiving. Can't wait to get back in here with you pretty soon. No telling what we're going to talk about the next time. But until we do, God bless you. And 73, y'all.
Thank you for listening to Ham Radio 360, brought to you by mtcradio.com. For more information about the program, visit hamradio360.com. Till next time, 73s, y'all.